B1AG, I want the bag. Work my way from a garden to a track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of a presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. B1 code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. B1AG.
What's growing on? What's growing on? What is growing on? Welcome back to B1AG Daily Bread Podcast. I'm John Henry Harris, and we also have Farmer Brown, the MC. Here at B1AG, we focus on Black agriculture as it pertains to agricultural production, education, marketing, health, food, nutrition, and economics, all for the Black family and for the Black community. Welcome, Black, to the garden. Today is going to be a different story. Now, recently there was a simulation that took place by the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, in which 10 countries took part in a simulation of a major cyber attack on the global financial system in an attempt to increase cooperation that could help minimize any potential damage to financial markets and banks. Now, this simulation, again, it's about a financial cyber attack. And here at B1AG, we do focus on agriculture. But again, if our financial system is attacked, this definitely will affect the way we're able to access food. And we are going to deep dive into this today and look at this simulation, and also just educate our viewers and our listeners about these simulations, how often they happen, and eerily how some of these simulations have come to pass. So at the end of the day, these simulations, they are, emergency preparedness is essential for us to avoid loss of life in the face of imminent danger. Various conditions and outcomes can be investigated through these simulations to allow a cost-effective investigation of critical situations without the risk being actually present. And they also can be sped up. The simulations can be sped up so that societal behavior can be studied easily over a long period of time. Today, we're going to explore these recent eye-opening simulations that have been performed by our government, but also we're going to point out the need for our community, the B1 community, the Black community, to have some of these same mechanisms in place in areas of food system preparedness in the face of emergency for our communities. So today, danger. 10 countries simulate global financial cyber attack. But again, we're going to be looking at not only this simulation of the financial cyber attack, but what does this mean about how are we going to eat? How are we going to be able to feed ourselves? How is this going to affect our access to food? Farmer Brown. Danger!
First, I'd just like to say peace to the B1 family. Before we get started today, we would like to send a deep, genuine, heartfelt condolences to the people in the Midwest, Western Kentucky, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, the other states who, there were 4 tornadoes. Here we're in December, going into winter. And so I would like to preface our conversation today by saying, like Bruss says, is if we stay ready, we don't have to get ready. things can change at the drop of a dime at any given moment. And so here at B1AG, we really like to focus on solutions. We like to stoke conversation and thought. When we talk about this concept of codification, codification is coming up with strategies to address real world problems. But when we're talking about these simulations, there is this concept called military war games. Military war games specifically as a war game is used by military organizations to train officers in tactical and strategic decision making, to test new tactics and strategies, or to predict trends in future conflicts. Hunger can be a conflict. Uh, like I said, using the situation that just recently happened in the Midwest with the tornadoes, that is a real conflict. Obviously, water systems are down, is down. A lot of systems that were normally in place that unfortunately many of us take for granted were suddenly disrupted overnight. There were meteorological predictions that hey, a storm is coming, but I mean, pretty much every day in North America, if we're looking at a weather report, there's going to be some sort of what's going on, family. There's going to be some sort of disaster or possible storm, and so there's no real way to predict which storm is going to be the one that's going to disrupt. And so what we're going to talk about today is sometimes these simulations actually come to life, and not necessarily trying to get conspiratorial, but really pointing out like, hey, there are some things to think about, and more so worrying about what other folks got going on. What are we able to do in the melanated family to make sure that we're secure in the face of danger?
Now, this simulated war game, again, was conducted by the IMF. That's the International Monetary Fund. While as an undergraduate student at the University of Kentucky getting my economics degree, we learned a lot about the IMF as well as their role in the international global economy. So this is major. Now, the simulated war game, as Israel's finance ministry called it, and planned over the past year, revolved over 10 days with sensitive data emerging on the dark web. The simulation also used fake news reports that in the scenario caused chaos in global markets and a run on banks. The simulation, likely caused by what officials called sophisticated players, featured several types of attacks that impacted global foreign exchange and bond markets, liquidity, integrity of data, and transactions between importers and exporters. These events are creating havoc in the financial markets, said a narrator of a film shown to the participants as part of the simulation and seen by Reuters.
If you could
Israeli
pull up that
government officials
graphic.
said, Israeli government officials said that such threats are possible in the wake of many high-profile cyber attacks on large companies, and that the only way to contain any damage is through global cooperation, since current cybersecurity is not always strong enough.
As
Now,
we pull this up, so once again, as we have these conversations, we really like to be specific. My mom always tells me, unless you're there, you really don't know what's going on. But we find ourselves in a space where many of us look to the news or media publications to decide whether something's a legitimate or not. But as he's pulling this up, I would hope the family looks at the images. When we
which
think about
one?
the one with the 10 countries, who are the parties? Seeing is believing. And so when we think about some of these countries that are involved, we think about certain other war games that have played out throughout history. We think about NORAD, which we'll talk about a little later. We think about the CDC, in zombie apocalypse. And so this is from Reuters. This is a reputable news source. And so this news actually hit a couple of days ago, December the 9th. And some other so this is what this looks like. You have different people sitting around the table, deciding the fate of humanity. The goal is, hey, if such a financial attack, hits the country, we have to be unified. We have to have a globalized effort. We have to do this in unison. And so, obviously there's some validity in working in unison to address issues. But as a melanated community, we've seen many times before when this concept of unitary alignment and cooperation goes down. Many times our community finds ourselves on the short end of the stick. And so once again, our thing here at B1AG, how can we take what we see going on an international scale and apply it to our local communities? Uh, if you go to the next slide. And so we've heard with the CDC. So we've heard over the last couple of months, and we've actually reported on this not too long ago. The CDC actually did a disaster preparedness in a zombie apocalypse. This news actually came out a little bit before the Super Bowl here in 2021, but this war game or simulation actually took place originally in 2012. We find ourselves about to go into 2022. So 10 years ago, the CDC, and if you can pull that up just so the family don't think we're making these things up. Zombie Nation, teaching preparedness through a zombie attack. And so, a lot of the concept of fact checkers, a lot of this comes from, the government. Hey, these people are putting out disinformation, so we don't want to confuse the populace. And so, let us make sure we're giving everybody this straight information. So once again, this is from the CDC, Zombie Nation, teaching preparedness through a zombie outbreak. And what this was basically going through is food security. If you want to touch on some of the paragraphs on there, fam, this is basically going through food security. This was through the Drexel University College of Nursing and Health Preparedness. And so when we have these B1AG conversations, we really like to focus on this concept of research. Research doesn't just happen in a laboratory. Sometimes research can happen behind your computer. Research, is best done, on the grassroots level. Every community is different. And so do we have a critical mass of people within melanated communities that agree? Okay, we had the brother Leroy Serbaz on talking about CERT teams. And so do we have enough of us that care enough to just kind of have these conversations? War game this out. It's one thing having, the backroom conversations, man, what if this goes wrong? But it's another thing actually taking the time and effort to plan out some of these possibilities. For example, within this CDC, they're talking about zombies coming to eat people. And I imagine there's a million other ways that they could have framed this possible emergency, but to say zombies and then peace, appreciate it. When we think about these concepts of zombies, some of the conversations going on around some of the genetic modifications and gene therapies going on around the world right now, addressing certain other predictable war gamed elements that have affected our society. Hey, these are definitely conversations we need to have. Yes. Thank you for that, Brother Waters. And so, once again, there's the magic is in being honest. When I'm able to tell you exactly what I'm doing, there's a power that comes with that. Now, if y'all think this is just a simulation, or y'all just think this is a movie or entertainment, or I've told you now, it's left to you to decide, is this something you move upon? And so next, if you could pull up Cargill. So we know Cargill, this is one of the largest meat processor and manufacturing corporations around the world. When we think about this concept of monopolies, and so we know Cargill has, their paws on, global meat supply. And so in 2015, Cargill did a food chain reaction crisis simulation that in the end game, after they did their simulation, ran through these models, it ended with a global carbon tax. I don't know if the family remembers a couple of months back, we did a podcast talking about your boy Bill Gates and his goal to reduce carbon emissions to zero. We know when we think about these carbon emissions, that includes, for people that eat beef, the way our meat is produced and livestock is produced. When we think about this UN 2030 agenda, reducing these carbon emissions, the goal, according to them, not to throw shade, is hunger, civil unrest, spiking food prices came together at the food chain reaction game in D.C. So how can we stave this off? And like I said, this goes back to 2015. So today is 2021, and we just saw 4 tornadoes hit a place in December where that historically hasn't happened. If you've been paying, if you still listen to that guy in the White House, you're going to keep hearing these words: carbon emissions, uh, global climate change. Addressing these things as a team, building black better, building back better. We say building black better. But you'll notice a lot of these reoccurring themes, and they're culminating to this flashpoint. Like I said, Cargill found the need, and this isn't even a military institution. This is an actual corporation that deals with meat. But they felt the need to invest some money and time and bring people together to do a simulation on what this could turn into.
And
Like
check this out, Farmer Brown. Cargill, this is again November 12th, 2015. 65 international policymakers, academics, business, and thought leaders gathered at the World Wildlife Fund's headquarters in Washington, D.C. to game out how the world would respond to a future food crisis. The game took the players from the year 2020 to 2030. The game took the players from the year 2020 to 2030. This article came out November 12th, 2015. As it was projected, a decade after the decade brought two major food crises with prices approaching 400% on the long-term average. A raft of climate-related extreme weather events, governments toppling in Pakistan and Ukraine, and famine and refugee crisis in Bangladesh, Myanmar, Chad, and Sudan.
We've been hearing that Ukraine word a lot lately, haven't we? In relation to Russia, possible conflict with Russia. We think about Chad and Sudan and the other countries in the motherland. There's this encroaching. So here at B1AG, we're not here to put out conspiracy theories more so than connecting dots. If these conversations were going on in 2015, what did y'all know that was going to happen in 2020 that would create a food crisis? Are we not now experiencing food shortages, supply chain disruptions? Anybody that's been keeping up with what's going on in DC right now, they're talking about this inflation because of this bill that this guy that some of the people voted in the office. This inflation, and so it's one of those things. Okay, did y'all know this was going to happen? Are you affirming this? Are these simulations like a vision board where you're writing the future? And so once again, we're just kind of having this conversation. If you go to the next one, and so we think about September 9/11, and so we think about NORAD. So there was actually a simulation going on that day. And, like I said, we don't want to deep dive into the 9/11 conspiracies more so than, you can go to NORAD.
This article came out April 19th, 2004.
If you want to read that real quick.
Said NORAD exercise had jet crashing into building. This is from Barbara Starr, CNN, Washington Bureau, Monday, April 19th, 2004. Sometime between 1991 and 2001, a regional sector of North America Aerospace Defense Command simulated a foreign hijacked airliner crashing into a building in the United States as part of a training exercise scenario, a NORAD spokesman said Monday. The exercise was solely to test the procedures and was no indication that NORAD had any reason to believe the scenario would happen in the real world, according to a spokesman. It is unclear whether the simulated scenario was that of a hijacked plane being used as a missile, intentionally crashing into a building, or that of an out-of-control hijacked plane. Military officials said the exercise involved simulating a crash into a building that would be recognizable if identified, but was not the World Trade Center or the Pentagon. They emphasized it involved an airline being hijacked as it flew into the U.S. airspace from abroad, a slightly different scenario than what happened on September 11th, 2001.
And last, before we continue into this conversation, how it relates to our food security. So, Event 201, this is through Johns Hopkins. This is one of the accredited research, medical institutions in the country. So, this Event 201, and this is funded by your boy, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And it was a simulation of if you want to read this, hold on. The Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hosted Event 201, a high-level pandemic exercise, October 18th, 2019 in New York. The exercise illustrated areas where public and private partnerships will be necessary during a response to a severe pandemic in order to diminish large-scale economic and societal consequences. In recent years, the world has seen growing number of epidemic events amounting to approximately 200 events annually. These events are increasing and they are disruptive to health, economies, and society. Managing these events already strain global capacity. This is before the shipping and disruptions, even absent pandemic threat. Experts agree that it is only a matter of time before one of these epidemics become global. And here at B1AG, we like to be fair, right? And so if you can click on that statement about the NCOV, and this is John Hopkins, we're just going to read their words. We're not going to put words in their mouths. So, statement about NCOV and our pandemic exercise. In October 2019, the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security hosted a pandemic tabletop exercise called Event 201 with partners, the World Economic Health Forum and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Recently, the Center for Health Security has received questions about whether the pandemic exercise predicted the current novel outbreak in To be clear, the Center for Health Security and partners did not make a prediction during our tabletop exercise. For the scenario, we modeled a fictional corona pandemic, but we explicitly stated that it was not a prediction. Instead, the exercise served to highlight preparedness and response challenges that would likely arise in a very severe pandemic. We are not now predicting that the 19 outbreak will kill 65 million people, although our tabletop exercise included a mock novel virus that inputs we use for modeling the potential impact of the fictional virus are not similar to the NCOV 2019. So we didn't say this was going to happen. We didn't say it was going to be like 65. We didn't say none of this. It just, we just happened to have this conversation funded by, somebody who's got their hands in the test and the gene therapies and everything else. Like you just read NORAD, like we didn't predict that, planes were going to run into an identifiable building that people will be able to identify. I mean, we didn't predict this.
We simulated it was going to come from foreign airspace. It didn't happen just like it happened. We had a different simulation, but similar.
At Cargill, we didn't assume that there was going to be like a food chain disruption that was really going to, affect the supply chain, and prices were going to go up like 400% in 2021 in the midst of suddenly this thing where some people are saying zombie. And zombie, we tend to think about some of these video games, but you imagine, you had said it before, if you get hungry. If I'm in a hunger situation, my dollar no longer has value when I go to, exchange it for some food. There is an electrical grid outage, which this is what the recent war game, my money don't work no more. My card don't work no more. And I still got babies to feed. I still got to eat. We're going into, what do they say, the darkest winter, which was another simulation, right? And so it's like, man, all of these things going on. Are there any connections? Here at B1AG, we as we sit behind these screens, I like my mom says, unless you're there, son, you don't know what's going on. But when we think about how sudden the changes can happen, this is definitely a conversation that we should all be having within our respective communities. It don't matter how much money you got. It don't matter how much money you don't have. It doesn't matter how much of a green thumb you are or a green thumb you're not. Here at B1AG, we like to talk about solutions. when we think about the perfect war game, so this is why we have healthyblackfood.com. One of the best war games that all of us can do is learning how to grow our own food for starters. At healthyblackfood.com, we go through the science of, okay, if I'm in an apartment, if I'm in a small space, if I have a larger space, what are some operations or systems that I can incorporate where I'm at? This isn't a system where you have to go report to a central governing body. There's no such thing as a leader within this. The code is the leader, and the code is we want to make sure that we're eating. We want to make sure that whatever might go on, regardless of where we're at, we at least know how to produce our own food. We want to know what foods can we harvest in a relatively short amount of time, just in case my card isn't going to work at the store. Just in case we no longer have access to the stores because the doors are closed because of a power outage. Like I said, I think it's very interesting that we find ourselves in the winter and all of these things are culminating. The other day we were, not to digress, we were talking about Medicago. They just came out with this, plant-based jabulation. They came out with a plant-based jab for people who might be averse to needles. And then it was literally the same day there was a press release of Kyrie Irving saying, okay, yeah, I might be down if there's a plant-based. And so one of the things here at B1AG, one of our key conversations is marketing. Marketing isn't necessarily just trying to sell you a pair of shoes or selling you an apple. Marketing is, I want your social buy-in. I want you to see this as something that you see yourselves participating in as a part of this. There's this also concept of problem, reaction, solution. And so when I have these war games in 2015, okay, this gave me time to figure out now how are y'all going to react? And see, once again, there could very well be some nefarious things going on. You might have a room full of 10 people who's seriously engaged in this war game, wanting to figure out now how can we make the best decision for our constituents? How can we make the best check-in? Absolutely. Absolutely. How can I make the best decision for my family? All it takes is one rogue element within that room. And it might be the funders, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It might be the funders that's just sitting back. Now, what would y'all do if this happened? If there was a food crisis, what would y'all do if this happened? If there was a pandemic of some sort that nobody had thought about, what would y'all do if this happened? Take notes, take notes, take notes. All right. So I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what y'all are going to do. So I know to do the opposite. Once again, do I have my tinfoil kufi on? I don't think so, but I think these are some definitely some things we need to think out. And, outside of the politics, like I said, one of the main things that it doesn't matter what area of society you come from. If you're a melanated person in what we call North America, Turtle Island, we need to know how to grow our own food. We need to build these local connections with producers. We need to become producers ourselves. We need to have distribution networks just in case our phone and communications go down. All of these are these simulations.
If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Now, these simulations. Now, while we're talking about how the little coincidences and to real life things, how questionable they may be. Now, the underlying purpose of the simulation is to shed light on the underlying mechanisms that control the behavior of a system. So they're very practical. They can be used to predict future behavior of the system, but also determine what you can do to influence that future behavior from the system. So here at B1AG, our thing is, what kind of simulations do we have in place or mechanisms do we have in place for our community during these times of crisis emergency? How prepared are we? How prepared are we really?
Brother Thaxton Waters keeps on hitting it, quoting the ancestor Dr. Amos Wilson. Possession is when someone else's desires and wants are implanted into your mind. When somebody else's
Wow.
desires or want, it's the art of suggestion. I'm suggesting to you that something might go through this building and create chaos. I'm suggesting to you. Because once again, you got to wonder, okay, why are y'all releasing this in the news now? This is something that happened months ago, years ago. Why would I release it now? There is a such thing as a stress body. And we understand, we're getting out of the Jason months going into the winter. And so it's seasonal anxiety disorder. During this time of the year is when people are the most stressed. And this is biological. This got nothing to do with news and political cycles. And so I'm going to introduce to your body I'm going to introduce these new variants. I'm going to introduce all of these possible problems. What does it say? There's going to be wars and rumors of wars. And so you got to think the average consumer, we consume a lot of content. We consume a lot of content daily. And so if I'm constantly reminding you that there's a problem, there's going to be a part of your body that's going to react negatively. There's going to be your mind, because what did they say? Your body follows your mind. So here at B1AG, we like this concept of codification, counter code. And so instead of us constantly being reminded of what's going wrong, this could go bad, that could go bad. I think a lot of us, especially within this family, we've seen what can go wrong. So our thing will be B1AG. Let us reintroduce, let us remind ourselves that we come from a people who are very resilient. Our ancestors dealt with all sorts of atrocities. We had a 400-year atrocity that, hey, we're still having this conversation. So how do we get back to our essence? How do we get back to the garden where we can feed ourselves? And once you fed yourself, I think it's also very interesting with the IMF. They said it was 10 days. Also in the Bible, not to get biblical, but hey, you can't skip around. A lot of this is spiritual. There's a 10 days of darkness spoken of. Because what you have these people, they like to taunt. They like to poke at, right? My thing is being fly in any weather, being prepared. If you're prepared, then whatever's going to come to you isn't going to overwhelm you. You're not going to be overwhelmed like, oh, man, I thought my phone would be on forever. I thought my card would always work. I thought if I have this pocket full of cash that I would always just be able to go to a counter somewhere and whatever it is I wanted to purchase would be available. Things change. Things can change overnight. Are we sitting here saying, oh, the world is going to hell in a handbasket? There's some school of thoughts that think that. But I tend to think the world is going through birthing pains. We're rebirthing the melanated nation. And what we see going on right now are catalysts for us to revisit what it was that made us the mothers and fathers of civilization in the first place. But are we wargaming this out? Are we going to leave our destiny and fate to chance? Or are we going to follow those who've been pretty successful at, putting these events up on these vision boards and manifesting them into reality? Do we have that will? Do we have that melanated love for one another? This isn't kumbaya, let me hold your hand. No, you got a stomach. I got a stomach. The people I care about got a stomach. What do these stomachs need for us to not become zombies, for us to not become parasitic to one another? We need to eat. Okay, we see we're in this economic situation where, okay, yeah, maybe there's not jobs. But what was the first job? Before prostitution, it was food distribution.
Yes, sir.
You see what I'm saying? So once again, if we can remind our people of, hey, this is where the bag is. The financial bag, the social bag, the cultural bag is in production. Production over consumption. Preparation over reaction. We're in our finest hour, family, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be some storms before we achieve it.
Ten countries simulate a global financial cyber attack. Now, we've discussed other simulations, from the NORAD, flying the planes into a building, to the global pandemic simulations and food crisis simulations that have gone down in 2019. And they've all come to pass. What kind of simulations is our community doing to make sure that we're safe and prepared for what may come down the line? Because it seems like to me, I was an athlete. I played, football, basketball, baseball, soccer. I was an athlete. And we had this thing called practice. And practice is very similar to assimilation. They're game simulations. situations that you may encounter in this game, we go over in practice. So when I look at these simulations, they're practicing. What are we practicing? What are we focused on? What are we paying attention to? We really need to focus this for ourselves. We can't let them dictate what we think about what's important to us. We need to stick to the script because the same thing at the basic biological level is important for everybody. We all have to eat. We all need nourishment and sustenance. All humanity is built on agriculture. You can't get around it. And not just with food. Agriculture provides the materials that we build with. Agriculture provides the minerals and the jewels and everything that we use in our devices. It all comes from agriculture. It all comes from the ground. It all comes from the earth. It all comes from land. And we have to make sure that we remain connected to the land, connected to nature, connected to what's real. They're selling land in the metaverse, but I don't think I've eaten anything grown in the metaverse. Matter of fact, the metaverse is still an idea. It's not even real yet. And even when they do introduce and open up the metaverse, it's still not real. It's not tangible. You can't touch it. That's why you have to put on these goggles to be able to be a part of it. You can go outside and touch a leaf. You can touch a tree. You can feel the grass. You can feel the wind. You can feel when that rain comes down because it's real. Let's not forget what's real, y'all. And when you feel them hunger pains, you know it's real. You know it's real.
We encourage the family. So in the chat, for the family that's here with us right now, so in the chat, I put links to each one of these. I'm a proponent of never take anybody's word for anything. Always do your new research. Here at B1AG, we just want to be lights. We want to be a light to kind of shine a light in a dark direction. All of these are verifiable simulations that have happened. And when we do the long-term math, because another thing, like you said, when you're practicing, whether you're doing sports or whatever it is, you're practicing for the whole year. You're not just practicing getting conditioned for one game. You're doing this conditioning to be ready and get better throughout the year, because as this proverbial year progresses, you're going to have to get stronger. Your competition gets stronger. It becomes higher stakes, and don't let you be like, one of the better players, right? I feel like we're the best team on the world. That's how I feel. When I got this melanin jersey on upon my arrival, I feel like I'm one of the best competitors. And so I must assume that anybody I'm competing with is going to be coming with their A game. And so once again, the ball is in my court. Are we practicing our A game? Are we waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning thinking about, now, how is this going to play out? Am I connecting with the people around me? Do I have conversations with people outside of just my phone? Am I used to am I used to maybe walking around the block or meeting with people and leaving my phone at home? Or do I have this anxiety that, oh, no, I can't go nowhere without my phone? These are some very real things to think about. Do we have a communication network set up where it doesn't require a device to talk? And like I said, this isn't being shady and conspiratorial. It's being very practical. I was talking with a young man the other day. He's my nephew, actually. And we was riding. I was taking him home to his mother's. And I was like, and I think he's 13 now. And I was like, hey, man, if your phone didn't work, would you know? And we was about maybe 3 miles away from his, 3 miles away from where his home was. And I was like, do you think you could find your way to your mother's house if your phone wasn't on? And he was like, I just called my grandparents. And I was like, I just said your phone wasn't on. How would, if I dropped you off right here and we're on a main road, how would you get home? And this is he's very smart. He knows how to code. He knows how to do blockchain, the whole nine. But I was like, now, if your phone stopped, would you be able to make it home? It was a very direct conversation, he was like, I just wait till my mom came and got me. So I'm thinking, well, how would your mom know where you're at? Saying this to say, you think about our elders. I remember my mom telling me stories about they used to walk 2 and 3 miles to get to school, and they were kids. They knew their way through the woods. They knew that, and we have actual paved roads. And we take for granted that people understand the ground that we're on. So once again, I'm kind of laughing to trying to make light of a dark situation, but we really got to reconnect with reality, family. There are many financial, I guess, benefits of the metaverse and crypto and digital spaces, but it's like, are we really going to be able to master that until we've actually mastered the real world? Because it would seem like the powers that be, that the powers that shouldn't be that we speak about, oh, we got this real world down. We got everybody else distracted and everything else. So now we'll go into the metaverse and do this, run the same play. And so once again, it's getting black to the garden, black to the essence. Can we grow food? Can we grow food? Practice makes perfect.
Now, the simulation, again, 10 countries simulate global financial cyber attack. And this simulation is just a part of a lot of other simulations that have gone down over the last 20 years that eerily mirror exactly what we're seeing in this right now. And eerily also, they always seem to center around the years 20, even though the simulations may have happened in 2012, 2015. The simulations always seem to have 2020, 2021 as the target dates. And that's exactly what we're facing now.
Soil and Green was 2021. Soil and Green.
Soil and Green, the year was 2021. If y'all don't know about Soil and Green, Google it. SOYLENTGREEN, Soil and Green. A very important agricultural move. It's about our food system. It was made during I think 1975, 74. It was in the mid 70s when this movie came out, but it was about our food system in the year 2021. Very eye-opening. All of these different emergencies, crisis situations, are we prepared? We need to be more. We're not. We're not prepared. I'm not even gonna, hey, we're not prepared, y'all. We're not prepared, and we need to be. One of the things that we've been doing a series with brother Leroy Shabazz out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and he talks about forming community emergency response teams. You can actually become a certified CERT team member. You need to contact your community emergency management agency. I know many of you never even heard or even knew that you had a community emergency management agency. But this is the agency that is supposed to take care of us in the times of distress and disaster. You need to contact your community emergency management agency to see how you can become a community emergency response team member. However, being that you're melanated, you're gonna get the I'm gonna tell you now, you're probably gonna get the runaround. So what we suggest you do is go to CERT.org. And you can contact Brother Shabazz there, and he will help you get the information that you need wherever you're at and whatever your community is in whatever state or whatever across this country, to try to start forming, to at least become certified yourself, and see if you can start pulling together CERT teams in your area so that we can be prepared in the face of a disaster, emergency. Again, our heart goes out to the Midwest. I went to the University of Kentucky. I have a lot of my classmates that are from those areas that are affected by those tornadoes. This was a bad situation. It's a horrible tornadoes. It's almost Christmas. They're having tornadoes in the Midwest before Christmas. If these aren't if this hair we got, if you got dreads, you got waves, if you bald headed, if you got hair in your chin, these are antennas, y'all. If these aren't these instances, these natural disasters, these simulations, if these aren't signaling your antennas, your spidey senses, if something's got to be going off. If you got to be aware, it's weird out here, y'all. There are a lot of changes going on, and we need to be prepared, y'all. On this channel, we talk a lot about the ant. We talk a lot about the ant and how it's always preparing Because the thing about the ants, is that they're not strong in comparative, like if you compare an ant to a horse. You can just step on the ant and crush it. But in relative terms, ants have an amazing strength. They actually carry, the amount of food that they carry, a morsel of food that they carry, it shows how tireless and strong they are. Like when you see an ant carry 10 to 50 times their own weight in food, that's like a 150 pound man carrying something 1,500 to 7,500 pounds. And you see how the ant is always in a state of preparedness, or in the state of being prepared or preparing. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest. That's the ant. And that comes from Proverbs 6:6-8. The sluggard is warned and pushed to pattern himself after the ant. But there are also other animals in this world that we need to look at. The badger. The badger. Yes, the badger. The badger makes their homes in rocks. Badgers are small and weak, yet they have the wisdom to find security in the rocks. That's very compelling. We need to find our real security in the rocks, and something solid with a real foundation. Look at the locusts. Now we look at the locusts and we think about the plagues and things like that. But check this out now. A single locust is hardly noticeable. A single locust, in fact, is harmless and insignificant. But when locusts travel together, they get the world's attention. No one knows better the damage of a swarm of locusts than the Pharaoh who refused to let God's people go. That's synergy, y'all. That's synergy. General, math tells us 1 + 1 = 2. And it does. But when you add that plus in the middle, that 1 + 1, that when you consider and take into account that plus in the middle, 1 + 1 = 3. Because with synergy, the sum of the parts is greater than the individual parts alone, meaning that this person and this person can produce what they can produce. When they synergize and work together, they are going to produce more together than they would be able to produce alone. Man, woman creates child. 1 + 1, and you get 3 people. Can y'all feel me? And the last one I'm going to discuss is the spider. Now, this spider, again, they're ingenious in weaving their webs with a fineness and exactness such as no art can pretend to come near. Now, when they make their webs, they do these webs in a poor man's college, in his poor man's home, or in a king's palace. How can they do this in a poor man's home or in a rich dwelling? Because the beauty of that spider comes from within. It comes from within us. And this is where we need to tap into our strength. Our strength comes from within us through the power of the Most High. So let us consider and let us always think about the spider, the locust, the badger, and that good old ant, that hard-working ant, because we need to be prepared. We need to make sure that we're ready, and we need to stay ready. Hey, I like music. I like rap. I like, I'm really into this new power book too. I'm on it. You know what I'm saying? I'm on it. But that's secondary to survival. And we can never forget that. Again, we stated this before. Here at B1AG, we consider B1 like we're blowing trumpets. We're blowing trumpets. We're trying to get everybody, hey, wake up. You know what I'm saying? Hey, we need to be aware. We need to be aware about what's going on with our food. Hey, we need to be aware of what's going on. There's a lot going on. Hey, y'all check this out. This is what they're doing. Mainstream news really ain't pushing this on us like they need to be. We're being trumpets. We're being canaries in the cave. Okay, y'all? Like, share, and subscribe. Make this conversation grow. Make this conversation bigger. Because here at B1AG, we're going to continue our mission. And our mission is to fight against this algorithm, which seems to thrive on ratchetness and negativity, especially when it comes to us and making that more visible. And we're going to keep pushing this B1 algorithm, agriculture, this realness. You talking about real? What's real? This algorithm, agriculture, this land, nature, all these things that God gave us on this earth that will allow us to thrive. That's real. And we're going to continue to push this B1 algorithm.
Pushing the black algorithm. Ancestors, they mastered the systems. We raising your bosses, no victims. Planting that knowledge curriculum. Blessing the roots with the nutrients. The darker the berry, like Nubian. Dropping receipts like I'm Julian. The streets with that food like Peruvian. Trapping the herbs and the fruits and the veggies. CSA boxes, my package is heavy. Ship across town in the bed of my Chevy. Printing them up, growing hard like that berry. If you stay ready, you ain't gotta scramble. Bet on black farmers and growers, no gamble. Reclaiming our pain cause the game is in shambles. Blessed with that melanin, carry the miracle. Mothers and fathers of civilization. Black to the garden with through cultivation. Building back better through black innovation. B1 community growing the nation. Genetically designed to be the dopest. Stoking that growth mindset. Codified, now we focus. Farming on track on track. Be the fam, break bread with them. Pushing that B1 algorithm. Now watch me get them. Watch me get them. Pushing that B1 algorithm. Be the fam, break bread with them. Pushing that B1 algorithm. Watch me get them. Watch me get them. Pushing that B1 algorithm.
If you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. Family, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. They're doing simulations. It's not a game. They're practicing. They're getting ready. Let us stay ready so we can compete, so we can survive. And at the end of the day, if you really want to know something, what do the people need to do, Farmer Brown?
If you really want to know something, in this multi-dimensional chess game, this is chess, not checkers. If you really want to know something, just put your prints in the mud. Understand that practice makes perfect. And let's learn how to grow something.
There it is. You want to learn how to grow something, go to healthyblackfood.com, sign up. Make this a family Make this a family event. Make this a community thing. Learn how to grow your own food. Learn how to do it cooperatively with other people. 1 + 1 = 3, synergy. So if you get a whole community, that's a lot of synergy, and that's a lot of food. Because we all have to eat. We'd like to thank you for, spending this time with us, joining in this conversation. Our comment sections are lit. If you ain't aware, our comment sections are lit. There's a lot of information being passed. There's a lot of inspiration being spread there. There's a lot of love there, and we appreciate it all. Let's grow this conversation. Let's grow this conversation. I'm John Henry Harris. We have Farmer Brown, the MC. We are B1AG, the Daily Bread Podcast. Thank you again for coming and visiting with us, Black in the Garden. We hope to see you soon. We will see you soon. And we're going to continue blowing these trumpets. Peace.